So we've all made our base stars. This is the second video. So we're going to stitch in one bead at the end of the herringbone line, which is your corner. This is row 1 of the vase points. The entire design is worked in sides and corners because as you work round in circular peyote, the step up will move. And the problem with that is not everyone beads in the same direction. Excuse me. So it's easier to say sides and corners. So row 1 is stitch 1A each outside corner, then peyote 4A and decrease 1 and peyote another 4A on each side. Now that's the decrease. We need to do another 4 along this edge here. It's also worth noting that it wouldn't, I don't know, say for example, you'd broken your thread and you joined it in at a different place, then it's still sides and corners. It doesn't matter where you are. That's your sides. And still keeping it nice and flat. I'm just basically going to repeat this row, whoops. Repeat these corners and sides all the way around the star. So I've gone all the way around. I just want to show you. I'm going to put in the last bead on this side. Row 2 calls for 9 each side, so I'm just going to pass through the corner bead at the top. Since we need to fit in 9 beads along this edge, you have to use the beads at the corner that says in the pattern utilizing the A between the increase 2A. So let's just see how that works. Now what you'll find is the 2 A beads that are sat either side of the corner A, there'll be a bit of thread, but don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't pull it so tight that you start to lift up the base. So when you've completed that round, you'll see my thread's exiting the A that's between the increase to A, and I really need the thread to be on the other side. So I'm just going to pass through one, and that's because when we get to the next corner, we're actually going to stitch through those two beads. So you can't do that if you're already on that outside A. So this is row 3, and we're going to peyote 8A each side, but when we get to the corner, we're going to decrease. So we add in the last A bead on this side, and then we're just going to skip the A that's between the increase to A of the previous row. And if you can't do it easily, then just ignore that A and come through the next peyote A. And make sure that your thread is on top of that A between the increase A, and pull it tight. You'll find after you've, I don't know, done 3 or 4 of the next peyote A, your thread will stop slipping. Just need to keep pinching those corners in as well as you can. See how we're now beginning the edges and the sides. Sometimes you have to encourage your beads to do what you want them to do. You can't just say, well, I'll pass through this bead and everything will be okay. You just have to encourage them to sit where you want them to. So this row is, in effect, the first row of the rise, and you can see I'm pushing the peyote beads that I'm adding up, and I'm also holding my thumbnail as like a guide that oh god, not. See, it happens to me too. I'll just show you that corner again. See, you keep continually pushing those first row of beads up and then pass through that A again. And so we've got the second corner. We add 2 and 3 peyote beads. Keep pinching and keep going all the way around. So row 4 is peyote 7A each side and 1A each corner. So as we're working this, what we're doing is we're creating the sides. But because we're decreasing at the corners, we're also going to be pulling these sides inwards. And I should point out that it's just the external corners that we're decreasing at. Try not to catch your thread as many times as me. Right, it's difficult to get this shot, but I'm gonna try. Right, so you pass through, you pick up 1A and you pass through the next bead that's sticking up on the next side. In effect, this A will sit directly above the decrease. So if you've got a little bit of thread there, you'll know you've put it in the right place. I think we're just about to see that. Row 5 is peyote 8A each side. So what you're going to do is use that corner bead of the previous row to get those 8 beads in along each side. Now you can, if you can see in the video, but I've now got 2 beads that are sticking up, which is setting yourself up for a decrease on the next row. So at the end of that row, I'm stitching in the last bead, which is weirdly the first bead of the next size, and stepping up. So on this row, we're going to do 7A each side, and we're going to decrease each corner. So this is row 6. So I'm just going to show you the decrease on that corner, which is in effect the last and the first bead of each side. We just pass through those. So you can see now we've got a bit of a point going on. So we just need to fill in the last bead and step up, ready for the next round. Which is to peyote 6A each side, 1/8 each corner. So for those of you that have seen version 1 of stage 2, I missed out how many beads it was each side, and I'm sorry for that. I'm also using card because I'm noticing that I'm transferring my thumbprints again, for anybody that's worrying about that. So here I am, and I've got 6A each side, and I've got 1 corner bead. So we're going to begin row 8. Now you've got to think about the fact that I'm not exiting the first bead in the next side, which calls for 1B, 2A, 1B, 2A, 1B. So you've got to make an allowance for that and count it out. Because what will happen is you do this each side. So when you come round and you finish the row, then you'll fill in the missing beads from the start of the row that you couldn't squish in because of where your step up is. And the reason I can't continually say, oh, well, you put these 2 here, or or perhaps it's 3, or because everybody beads in different directions, and some people bead in 2 directions, which I quite often find myself doing. I'll start one way and I'll reverse and go another way. So you see that looks a bit odd because I haven't done a full round or a full row. But you keep going, and this is how your row 8 should look. So we're now going to fill in those first 2 beads, but they're actually your last 2 beads that were missing when you began this round. And I hope that makes sense. This is a question I'm quite often asked, particularly in the Starbox tutorial, where you need to make exactly the same sort of adjustments. So here we are, and I've already completed row 9 and row 10, and I've done the first row, or half of the first row of row 11, and it's now obvious where your flowers are placed. If you don't want the flowers in, you could just bead these ones in A. And then obviously they just would not be there. Or you could use a third colour. So I'm working at the end of row 11. And it just so happens that when I've put in that last bead, the next stitch is the decrease. Which is row 12. Now I know we didn't step up, but it's just where it happened, and it was stitchable, so I didn't have to move through a few beads to do it. So I think it's now easy enough for you to complete the remaining rows. And here we are with row 20 completed. You can see we've got a lovely slope, a flat bottom. And the most important ones are these ones in the center here. So you should have 3 on each side. You may also notice that I've switched from smoke to clear on the file line using a file line join.